Amara was just 12 years old when the world she knew suddenly disappeared. Her parents, who had always cared for her and provided a small but happy home, had fallen ill within weeks of each other. The illness spread quickly, and despite their struggles they could not survive. The small village of Loma, where everyone knew each other, mourned with her, but there was no one who could take Amara in. Her aunts and uncles were too poor to help, and distant relatives had moved far away. The day after her parents' funeral, Amara wandered the village alone. The dusty streets seemed larger now, filled with voices that did not feel friendly. She walked slowly, clutching the small bag of belongings her mother had left her. Inside were a few clothes, a small notebook with drawings she had made over the years, and a picture of her parents smiling. She held the photograph close, wishing she could feel their warmth once more. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but even more than hunger, she felt the weight of loneliness. Every corner of Loma reminded her of her parents' absence. She passed the small market where her mother had once bought vegetables and fruit. The vendor waved, but when he saw she had no money, his smile faded. She passed the school where she had learned to read and write. The teachers asked about her parents and shook their heads sadly. The place that had been full of laughter and learning now felt like a reminder of what she had lost. At night, she curled up under the small overhang near the village well. The wind was cold, and she wrapped her thin shawl tightly around herself. Tears came quietly, slipping down her cheeks as she whispered to herself, "I wish I had a family. I wish someone could take care of me." The stars above seemed so far away, distant and cold, and she wondered if anyone would ever notice her struggles. The next morning, Amara tried to find something to eat. She knocked on neighbors' doors, but many were busy with their own work, farming or tending animals. Some gave her small pieces of food, enough to fill her stomach for a little while, but not enough to keep her strength up. The little coins she had found around the village were gone quickly, spent on bread and water. She realized that surviving day by day would be much harder than she had imagined. Despite the fear and hunger, Amara had a spark inside her. She remembered how her parents had told her to be brave and to help others when she could. Even now, alone in the world, she wanted to honor their memory. She helped an old woman carry water from the well, earning a small loaf of bread in return. She gathered firewood for a man in the village who paid her a few coins. Every small task was hard, but she faced it quietly, determined to survive. As days passed, she grew thinner, and the village streets began to feel less welcoming. Some children ignored her, some stared at her clothes and laughed, and a few older boys teased her, knowing she had no one to defend her. Yet, Amara learned to keep her head down, to move quickly, and to avoid trouble. She discovered quiet spots where she could rest without being noticed, hidden corners of the village where the wind was less biting. At night, when she lay under the overhang, she thought about the past. She remembered the laughter of her parents, the smell of her mother's cooking, and her father's stories under the evening sky. Those memories brought both comfort and sorrow. They reminded her of love and family, but they also reminded her of what she had lost. She clutched her small notebook, sketching her memories quietly to keep herself company. One morning, as she wandered near the river that ran at the edge of the village, she found a small group of children playing. They welcomed her slowly, seeing her hunger and her careful ways. She shared the small bread she had earned, and in return they offered her friendship. For a moment, Amara felt lighter. Even in her loneliness, she realized that small connections could bring comfort, even if life was difficult. The days turned into weeks, and Amara continued to survive, learning more each day about how the world worked. She discovered that she needed to be clever, to plan where she would sleep, how she would eat, and how she would avoid danger. She began to notice the patterns of the village, when merchants opened stalls, when the children played, and when the streets were quiet. Every observation helped her make small decisions that kept her safe. Even with her small victories, fear often returned. Some nights, when the wind blew harder, or when hunger pressed at her stomach, she cried quietly for her parents. She whispered to herself that she hoped they could see her, that they would be proud of her courage. Though she was alone, she refused to give in to despair. She promised herself that she would survive, and she would find a way to live a life that honored their memory. By the end of her first month alone, Amara had grown stronger in ways she had not expected. She learned to earn food in small coins, to navigate the streets safely, and to make quiet friends among the other children who also struggled. Each day was still a challenge, but she faced it with a quiet determination. She realized that even though her life had changed forever, she could still hold on to hope, and she could still dream of a better future. Evenings became a time of reflection. She would sit by the river, watching the water flow and thinking about the days ahead. "I may be alone now," she whispered to herself, "but I will find a way. I will survive and I will make a life I can be proud of. The stars above seemed less distant now, and she imagined her parents smiling down on her, encouraging her to be brave. Amara's story in those early weeks was not just about survival. It was about discovering a strength she never knew she had. Each step, each small meal earned, each kind word from a stranger, gave her courage. Though her heart ached for her family, she learned that even in loss, life could offer moments of hope and connection. And it was that hope that kept her moving forward, one small step at a time into the unknown days ahead. Amara had never seen a city as large as Kof. The streets were filled with people rushing in all directions, shouting vendors and the constant clatter of carts and wheels. She felt small and lost among the crowds. The tall buildings and bright lights were both exciting and frightening. For the first time, she realized that surviving here would be far harder than in her small village of Loma. She wandered the streets, searching for work, for food, or even a safe place to sleep. She knocked on doors, asking if anyone needed help with chores, washing, or carrying things. Most people ignored her, and some laughed at her youth and small stature. The few who did respond often offered very little or demanded more than she could give. The city, she quickly realized, was a place where only the clever or the strong survived. Hunger became a constant companion. She spent mornings looking for discarded fruits near market stalls and evenings asking for scraps from busy street vendors. She kept herself busy, cleaning small courtyards, sweeping doorsteps, and running errands for anyone willing to pay her a coin or two. Each coin was precious, enough for a small meal of bread or porridge, but never enough to feel truly safe. People tried to take advantage of her in ways she had not expected. Some adults promised work but asked for payments first or made strange requests. Amara learned quickly to say no, to walk away, and to trust her instincts. She learned that survival required courage, cleverness, and a careful eye. She observed the city closely, noticing where the kind people were, which streets were safe, and which areas she should avoid. Despite the hardships, Amara's heart held on to hope. She remembered the words her mother had told her: "Be brave and be honest. Help those who need it, and you will find kindness in the world." Even now, facing a city that seemed cold and uncaring, she tried to follow that advice. When she saw an older woman struggling with heavy baskets, she offered to help carry them. In return, the woman gave her a small loaf of bread and a warm smile. That small act reminded Amara that even in difficult times, kindness existed. Nighttime in Kof was especially hard. Streets that were crowded during the day became empty and dangerous after dark. Amara had to find safe corners, sometimes behind market stalls or under overhangs, to sleep without being noticed. She wrapped her shawl tightly around herself, shivering from the cold. Yet even in these lonely nights, she whispered to herself, "I will not give up. I will survive. I will find a way to live honestly and safely." Amara also met other children and young people who struggled like her. Some were older, hardened by life, and they warned her to be careful. They taught her small tricks to earn coins, to avoid dangerous adults, and to navigate the busy streets. She learned which parts of the city were safe for begging or selling small goods, and which streets were better to avoid after dark. These lessons were hard, but they helped her survive. She took any work she could find, from washing clothes for merchants to carrying water to households. Even when the work was hard and the pay small, she tried to do her best. She learned that honesty and effort, even in small tasks, earned respect from some of the city's residents. Slowly, she began to understand that while the city was full of challenges, it also offered opportunities for those who were determined and careful. Despite her determination, Amara often felt lonely. She missed her parents, the village of Loma, and the safety she once had. The city seemed to have no patience for children like her, and nights were filled with silence broken only by the distant sounds of carts and shouting. She would clutch her small notebook, writing her thoughts, sketching memories of home, and reminding herself that better days could come. Over time, Amara also began to notice the differences between people in the city. Some were kind, offering small help or work, while others were selfish or cruel, taking advantage of anyone who seemed weak. She learned to read expressions, to listen carefully, and to trust only those whose hearts seemed genuine. Her experiences made her more cautious, but they also strengthened her will to survive honestly. There were moments when the temptation to give up and take easier, dishonest paths appeared. Some older youth suggested ways to make more coins quickly, even if it meant breaking rules or putting herself at risk. Amara considered these ideas for a moment but remembered her mother's words and the promise she had made to herself to live honestly. Each time she refused, she felt a quiet pride and a little more strength growing inside her. One morning, after a long night of little sleep, Amara found herself near the busy market square. She watched the vendors shouting, the children playing, and people rushing past. She realized that if she could survive this city, she could survive anything. She promised herself that she would keep working, keep learning, and keep searching for safe opportunities. The city had not defeated her, it had only made her stronger and more careful. Evenings were still lonely, but she had begun to find small moments of comfort. She shared bread with other hungry children, gave water to tired animals, and helped elderly residents with small chores. Each kind act, no matter how small, reminded her that she still had a heart capable of love and care, even in a harsh world. Through her daily struggles, Amara's spirit began to grow. She became clever in earning coins, careful in avoiding danger, and patient in waiting for opportunities. She learned that life could be cruel, but also that kindness and determination could create small victories. Each day she survived honestly, she felt a sense of pride and hope that her future might be brighter. By the end of her first year in Kof, Amara had learned more than she ever imagined possible. She had discovered the harsh realities of city life, the dangers of strangers, and the importance of staying honest and careful. Yet she had also discovered small kindnesses, moments of safety, and the possibility of a better life. She had grown from a frightened girl into a cautious, clever, and determined young girl who refused to give up. Amara knew that her path would remain hard, and that each day would require courage and cleverness. But she also knew that she had the strength to face it. She promised herself that no matter what challenges came, she would survive, she would protect herself, and she would seek a better life. And in that promise she found a quiet hope that carried her through each day, guiding her steps in the busy, unpredictable streets of Kof. Amara had been living in the city of Kof for some months now. She had learned quickly that the city was full of dangers hidden behind bright lights and crowded streets. People moved fast, shouting, bargaining, and often ignoring each other. Some were kind, offering a helping hand or a small job, but many others were cruel, trying to take advantage of anyone who seemed weak or alone. Amara understood that to survive she had to be clever, careful, and always alert. She learned to keep her head down while moving through busy streets, observing everything around her. She studied the faces of adults, noticing who smiled genuinely and who sneered or whispered behind their hands. She learned which vendors were honest and which would trick her if she tried to sell something. Even when she walked near the market, she stayed quiet, careful not to draw attention to herself. At night, the streets became even more dangerous. Groups of older youths roamed the city, looking for easy targets. Amara avoided them by taking quiet back alleys and staying near places that were lit or crowded. She found corners behind closed shops or under stairs where she could rest safely. Though she slept lightly, always alert for movement, she began to feel more confident in her ability to protect herself. Her work was small but consistent. She washed dishes for a tiny restaurant, swept courtyards, carried water, and ran errands for people who trusted her. She learned that honesty and reliability were rare in the city, and by showing them, she earned small respect and trust. Each coin she earned was precious, but more than that, she earned small victories and confidence. Every task completed safely made her feel a little stronger, a little more capable. Despite her carefulness, Amara often felt lonely. She missed her parents terribly and the quiet life in her village. When she passed the school near the market, she would stand outside and watch the children laugh, draw, and learn. She longed to be among them, to feel safe and to study, but she knew she had to survive first. Her dreams of education became small goals, quiet wishes she held to herself while she worked and avoided danger. Amara also discovered other children living in the shadows of the city. Some were younger, some older, all facing the same struggles she had. She shared what little she had with them, some bread, a kind word, or advice about safe places to sleep. In return, they taught her small tricks to survive better, like which streets were safest at night and which vendors offered leftover food. These small alliances gave her strength and reminded her that even in harsh places, community could exist. The city required her to be clever at every turn. She learned to notice small details, like which streets were safer during the day and which were safer at night. She observed the guards, the shopkeepers, and the street vendors carefully. She learned to hide when she needed to and to move quickly and quietly when danger approached. Amara's awareness grew, and her quick thinking saved her from many potential troubles. Amara also discovered the importance of patience. Some days she would find nothing to eat or no work at all. On those days she learned to conserve her energy, to stay calm, and to keep looking for opportunities without panic. She realized that rushing or making careless choices often led to danger or loss. By staying patient, she gradually became stronger and more capable of facing the city's challenges. Even when she was tired or hungry, Amara kept her heart open to small joys. She listened to the songs of children playing near the river, watched the sunrise over the distant hills, and admired flowers growing in cracks along the streets. These small beauties reminded her that life still held goodness, even when it seemed hidden. They gave her hope that one day she could live in a safe home and feel truly happy again. Her cleverness and carefulness also allowed her to save small amounts of money. She hid coins in a small pouch, keeping them for days when she might need extra food or a safe place to sleep. Each coin represented her ability to survive honestly, without taking shortcuts or doing things she would regret. These savings gave her a sense of control, a feeling that she was slowly building a future, even while living in the shadows. Amara's dreams of education and safety remained her guiding light. She imagined herself in a small school, learning to read and write properly, wearing clean clothes, and sitting in a classroom with other children. She imagined nights in a warm bed with no fear of the streets. These dreams were far away, but she held them tightly, allowing them to give her strength and motivation to continue each day. Even in her darkest moments, when hunger and fatigue pressed heavily on her, she reminded herself of the promise she had made: to survive honestly, to stay clever, and to keep hope alive. This promise carried her through the nights and gave her courage in the daytime. Each challenge she overcame became a lesson, a small step toward the better life she dreamed of. She also learned the value of caution and timing. There were times when she was offered quick ways to earn more money, but they seemed risky or dishonest. She observed carefully, asked herself what was safe and right, and often refused the tempting offers. This cautious approach saved her from trouble many times and helped her grow wiser. By the end of her first year living in the city shadows, Amara had become skilled at surviving. She knew the streets, the people, and the dangers. She had learned clever ways to earn small money, avoid risk, and keep herself safe. She had also discovered moments of kindness and small connections that reminded her the world was not entirely cruel. Amara's life in the shadows taught her resilience, patience, and courage. She became careful with strangers, clever in her choices, and patient in waiting for opportunities. She continued to dream of a better life, of education and safety, and of a home where she could finally feel secure. Every day she survived honestly, she moved one step closer to that dream. Though her life was still hard, Amara understood that the shadows of the city had shaped her into someone strong, capable, and wise beyond her years. She knew that one day, if she continued to work carefully and hold on to hope, she could leave the shadows behind and build a life she could be proud of. The city had tested her, but it had also prepared her for the brighter future she was determined to reach. One bright afternoon, while Amara was walking carefully through the busy streets of Kof, she noticed a woman watching her from a small shop. The woman had warm eyes and a gentle smile. She seemed different from most people in the city, who often rushed by without noticing anyone. Amara kept her distance at first, unsure whether she could trust the stranger. Life in the city had taught her to be cautious. The woman stepped forward and spoke kindly. "Hello, child. I have seen you around, working hard and helping others when you can. You look like you could use some support. My name is Zola. Would you like to help in my shop? I can pay you fairly and give you a safe place to learn new skills." Amara felt a mixture of surprise and hope. She had never experienced such kindness from a stranger in the city before. She nodded carefully, her voice trembling slightly. I would like that very much, ma'am. Thank you." She felt a flicker of excitement mixed with nervousness. Could this really be true? Could someone actually offer her safety and kindness without asking for anything in return? Zola guided Amara into her small shop, which sold food, fabrics, and household items. It was not a large place, but it was clean, warm, and full of welcoming smells. Amara noticed the shelves were neatly arranged and the counters polished. She could see that Zola cared deeply about her business, but also about the people around her. She smiled, feeling a small spark of hope. Amara's work at the shop was simple at first. She swept the floors, arranged items on shelves, and helped customers carry their purchases. Zola taught her patiently, explaining each task step by step. Amara listened carefully, eager to do well. For the first time in a long time, she felt useful in a safe and kind environment. Every day she worked, she gained confidence and skill, and she began to trust that not everyone in the city wanted to harm her. In addition to work, Zola encouraged Amara to attend evening classes at a small learning center nearby. "Education will give you freedom," Zola said gently. "It will help you create the life you want. I can guide you, but you must also try your best." Amara agreed eagerly, feeling the warmth of possibility she had not known in months. The thought of learning again filled her with energy, and she began to look forward to each evening, even after long hours of work. Amara quickly discovered that she enjoyed learning. The teachers at the evening center were patient and encouraging. She learned to read and write better than she ever had before, practiced arithmetic and studied simple life skills. She began keeping a small journal, writing about her day, her work in the shop, and her dreams for the future. Writing became a way to release her fears and record her hopes. Slowly, Amara began to make friends. Other children attending evening classes welcomed her, seeing her determination and gentle nature. She learned to share small stories, help her classmates with lessons, and laugh again. The loneliness she had felt for so long began to fade. For the first time since her parents had died, Amara felt that she belonged somewhere, even if it was small and simple. Zola also taught Amara important life skills. She showed her how to handle money wisely, manage small tasks carefully, and deal with customers politely. She encouraged Amara to speak confidently, to ask questions when she did not understand, and to notice small details in every task. Amara absorbed each lesson quickly. She realized that with careful effort and patience she could improve her life step by step. The shop became a safe space for Amara. Unlike the streets, where danger lurked and trust was rare, here she felt protected. Zola treated her like family, offering advice, encouragement, and praise when she did well. Amara began to see that kindness and guidance could make a huge difference in a person's life. She remembered her parents' lessons about honesty and care and realized that she was finally living in a place where those values mattered and were appreciated. Even when challenges appeared, Amara felt stronger because of Zola's support. Some days were long and tiring, and learning new skills was hard work. Sometimes, other children teased her or she struggled with difficult tasks. But Zola always encouraged her, saying, "Keep going, Amara. Every small step is a victory. You are stronger than you think." Those words stayed with her, giving her courage to continue each day. Through the months, Amara began to regain her confidence. She worked diligently in the shop, learned quickly in her classes, and shared kindness with other children. She no longer feared the city in the same way. She felt capable, resilient, and hopeful. Her life was no longer just about surviving, it was about learning, growing, and building a future. Amara also began to dream again. She imagined one day owning a small business, helping children who struggled like she once did, and living in a safe, warm home. The nightmares of the streets were slowly replaced by plans, ambitions, and hope. She felt a sense of control over her life for the first time since her parents had passed. Zola noticed these changes and smiled. "You see, Amara," she said one afternoon, "even after hardship, life can offer new beginnings. You just need courage, patience, and willingness to learn." Amara nodded, feeling gratitude deep in her heart. She realized that the help she had received was more than just work or education. It was a chance to heal, to trust, and to dream again. The small shop became more than a workplace. It became a home in a way. Amara felt safe there, valued for her skills, and part of a small community that cared for her. She still remembered the streets, the hunger, and the fear, but she no longer felt trapped by them. Each day brought new lessons, new friendships, and new hope. By the end of her first year with Zola, Amara had transformed. She was stronger, smarter, and more confident. She could handle customers on her own, complete difficult tasks, and help younger children in the evening classes. Her smile had returned, her laughter more frequent, and her dreams of a safe home and education were no longer distant wishes but achievable goals. Amara had learned that life could be hard, but help could appear in unexpected ways. She discovered that kindness, guidance, and a safe environment could change everything. She was no longer alone. She was learning, growing, and building a life she could be proud of. And for the first time in years, Amara believed that her future could be bright and full of hope. Over the years, Amara's life slowly began to change. With the guidance of Zola, she had learned skills that helped her earn a steady income at the shop, and her evening classes gave her confidence and knowledge she had never imagined she could have. She saved every coin she could, careful and patient, understanding that even small steps could lead to big changes. The city no longer felt entirely frightening. It had become a place where she could work, learn, and plan for the future. Amara rented a small room in a quiet part of Cove. It was simple, a single window, a wooden bed, and a small table, but it was hers. For the first time, she felt the pride and comfort of having her own space, a safe place to rest after long days. She decorated it with small drawings, a few books she had collected, and mementos of her parents. The room reminded her that she had survived hardship and could now take charge of her own life. Her work continued at Zola's shop, where she had grown skilled in handling customers, managing stock, and helping in daily operations. People in the community began to recognize her as honest and reliable. Her reputation for integrity grew, and she found herself feeling respected for the first time in years. She enjoyed the satisfaction of a job done well and the simple pride of earning honestly. Amara also dedicated time to helping other children in Kof who were struggling like she once had. She shared advice on how to stay safe in the city, helped them with their studies and small lessons she had learned herself, and offered them encouragement when they felt hopeless. Many children looked up to her, seeing her as a role model. Amara felt a deep sense of purpose in guiding them, knowing that she could prevent them from feeling as lost as she once had. She often walked through the streets where she had once been alone, hungry, and scared. She remembered the nights she had hidden behind market stalls, the hunger that had pressed on her, and the cold wind that had made her shiver. Now, as she passed those same streets with confidence, she felt a quiet strength inside her. She understood that every hard choice she had made, every moment of patience, and every act of courage had led her to this moment. Amara continued her studies, determined to learn more each day. She dreamed of one day opening her own small business, where she could employ other young people in need, providing them with safe work and guidance. The idea filled her with energy and purpose. She wanted to give back to the city that had once been harsh and lonely for her, showing that kindness and patience could create positive change. She also nurtured small friendships that brought joy into her life. Other young workers, students from her classes, and even some neighbors became companions she could trust. They shared meals, laughter, and stories of their lives. Amara had learned that while the city could be dangerous, there were always good people willing to help and support others if one could find them. Evenings in her small room became a time for reflection and planning. Amara would write in her notebook, recording her goals, her accomplishments, and the lessons she had learned. She sketched little pictures, sometimes of her parents, sometimes of the children she helped, and sometimes of her imagined future. Writing and drawing became a way to keep her memories alive and to remind herself of how far she had come. Amara had also grown emotionally stronger. She had learned to forgive herself for past mistakes and to accept the hardships she could not change. She realized that life could be unpredictable and unfair, but that her choices mattered. Each act of honesty, each effort to learn, and each kind gesture she made had built a better future for herself. She no longer felt powerless or defeated by the world around her. Over time, Amara noticed that her hope had turned into action. She participated in community activities, volunteered in small projects to clean streets and help children, and supported neighbors whenever she could. Her actions inspired others to act kindly and responsibly. People began to respect her not just for her skill and work ethic, but for her integrity and the care she showed to those around her. Amara also reflected on her personal growth. She had learned patience, resilience, and the value of hard work. She understood that courage was not just about facing danger but also about making honest choices every day, even when easier paths seemed tempting. Her life had been full of difficulties, but each challenge had strengthened her character and determination. She smiled often now, feeling joy in small things that had once seemed impossible. A warm meal, a safe place to sleep, friendly conversation, a child's laughter. These moments reminded her of how much she had achieved. She no longer measured life only by survival but by growth, kindness, and the positive impact she could make on others. Amara also remembered Zola often, grateful for the day the kind woman had noticed her struggles and offered help. That act of kindness had changed her life completely, opening a path out of despair. Amara understood the importance of paying forward the help she had received. She wanted to be a light for others just as Zola had been for her. As the years passed, Amara continued to improve her life. She learned new skills, helped more children, and became a respected member of her community. Her past, filled with loss and hardship, no longer defined her. Instead, it had given her strength, wisdom, and compassion. She had transformed her life through courage, patience, and honest effort. Even in quiet moments, she felt pride in herself. She knew that the little steps she had taken each day, saving coins, studying, working honestly, helping others, had led her to a life full of hope and opportunity. She had survived the worst, learned valuable lessons, and created a life she could truly be proud of. Amara realized that loss did not have to mean the end. With determination, kindness, and courage, she had built a new beginning. The shadows of the streets and the fears of her early life no longer held power over her. She had grown, healed, and created a future where she could thrive and help others do the same. Every morning she awoke with a sense of purpose. She worked, studied, and planned for the future, but she also took time to smile, to appreciate small joys, and to help those in need. Amara's life had changed completely, and she understood that true strength came not just from survival, but from the courage to live honestly and the kindness to care for others. In the end, Amara had created a life full of hope, safety, and purpose. She had turned her hardships into lessons, her struggles into strength, and her loneliness into compassion for others. She knew that even after great loss, a determined heart and kind spirit could build a new beginning. She smiled often now, proud of the life she had shaped with her own hands and grateful for the chance to help others follow the same path.